Morning, everybody. Morning, everybody. I've just been assured that the air conditioning will be switched on. And it's going to be done in University of Manchester time. So for those of you who come prepared with fans, they're going to be worth a lot of money in the next couple of weeks. But good morning, everybody, and welcome to our annual staff conference, Together23. I need to begin today with an apology from Patrick, who was, of course, due to open the conference again this year. As you know, there's an ongoing cybersecurity incident at our university, and very recently, Patrick let me know that he needs to attend another meeting this morning, but he's really upset at not being able to be here with you. You know how much the library means to him, but hopefully you'll understand that he needs to be elsewhere this morning. And I'd just like to take the opportunity that we send him and those closest to the incident our full support. I'll also take this opportunity to thank those in the library that are also handling our own response and planning. You may not have felt much impact from the incident at the moment, and that's because there's an awful lot of work going on in the university. As you know, we all need to remain calm and continue with business as usual at this stage, but also follow directions given through the university's response teams as and when required. And that may happen today in terms of password resets. So just keep an eye on your laptops and iPads and so on. But thank you to everyone for continuing to focus on our many users. I know that's all of our instincts, and also on each other. These incidents can be quite distressing, and there are a large number of staff in the university under incredible stress at the moment, but I'm happy to report that they're handling it and that the university is supporting them as they handle this incident. If there is any further update, which there isn't at the moment, even during today, I'll of course let you know. Today, though, is very much about Together23, our staff conference, and isn't it just amazing to see us together in one room, is a great opportunity for us to come together as a library, to hear about areas of work from across our many different teams and directorates, to share our challenges, to celebrate our achievements, and to simply spend time with one another. In opening the conference, I'd like to record my thanks to all of you for your work this year. We are recognised as a remarkable library, not just for our collections, but also for our services and our staff. When I move around the university and when I travel externally, I'm struck by the deep level of value, trust, and respect by which our library is perceived and in which it is genuinely held. This is all down to the work by every single member of the library, by all of you in this room, no matter your role or team. We are seen as a library that is driven by the themes embedded in our Imagine 2030 vision. Our library supports transformative research. Our students are partners in our ambition. Our inclusive ethos is to open knowledge to society. Our collections are amongst the greatest in the world. Our services are a key part of university and city life. Our library offers boundless variety and inspiration. We especially uphold the seventh theme today, which is that our people are trusted, collaborative, and diverse. This theme is central to Together23. The conference brings us together as a community. There should be no one in our library who feels isolated, unsupported, or judged in any way. As a library, we instinctively think of others, our students, our academic colleagues, our PS and cultural institution colleagues, our public role and our countless partners and further colleagues across the world. Today is intended to reflect on all those people who come into contact with our library, but it's also to spend time ensuring that our own library community is safe, inclusive, respectful, creative, pioneering, and in every sense of the word, special. The world often seems to be becoming more complex, more dangerous, and less caring. We're now living in a period of profound uncertainty in terms of the climate emergency, financial insecurity, reckless state-sanctioned terrorism under the guise of war, rising racism, anti-Semitism, new depths of cruelty against the LGBTQI plus communities, careless, self-interested political actors, both here and in other countries, and sustained attempts around the world to ban books from libraries, most notably in the United States, and in particular, those libraries within schools. My opening remarks are always intended to set a positive, celebratory tone, but I'd not be true to myself, my own conviction as a vocationally driven librarian, or as the director of this great library, if I did not place our work in that wider context, not just of what we stand for, but also what we stand against. We have a responsibility to harness the power, not just of our library, but of all libraries, to play our part in promoting access, equality, freedom, and truth. The challenge may seem too great, the forces against us too strong or too dark, but they are not. We are equal to the challenge. At the heart of our wider profession are forces stronger than violence, falsehoods, discrimination, and oppression. We are only one library, but we're also part of a network of libraries, universities, agencies, charities, and people across the world who collectively have the power to stand against hate and for truth. We are one library, but we're also one with so many others. Libraries are not on the fringe of the perpetual battle for truth, justice, and equality. We are on its front line. Together23 is about being together today, but it's also about being aware of our role in society and through that awareness, taking action. As we spend time together today and hear about all the great work being done here in Manchester, please always evoke that wider role, our responsibility, our challenge, our need to stand up for the values of our profession and the personal ethics that by being together today we all share. Manchester is a great city. Ours is a great university. We work in a great library. Let's capitalize on what those three statements mean. Let's work for a better world, from helping individual students to facing down global fears. I am proud to be here. I'm proud of you. Have a great day together.
Thank you very much, Chris, for those really powerful words. That makes me feel a bit foolish now. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, friends. Good morning, colleagues. Just to point out straight off the bat, Frankie will be taking photos throughout the day. We haven't asked him to do that. We don't know what's going on. So just try and stay out of the lens, is my advice. Now, I know what you're all thinking. you're looking, you're thinking, crikey, they've cracked out the eye candy early.
You know it's true.
I said that wasn't a joke. What's going on? But we have got a very serious job to do today, which is to try and keep the conference today on track, keep things moving. Our job today entails introducing speakers, coming to you guys for the Q&As and getting some really excellent questions from you. Promise? Wow. Thank you for the 3 people who nodded. But we're also going to go through the schedule and make sure that you're all in the place you need to be and when you need to be there. One thing that the 3 of us noticed when we were coming in today is how everyone, and I don't blame you for this, you've tended to sit in your teams. But we thought it'd be quite nice to see who sat where. So first off, who fancies giving me a woo from Collection Strategies? Now, I'm not saying it's a competition, but it's a competition. Can I have a woo from Curatorial Practices, please? Collection Strategies, sort yourself out. FSP. That's my team, so FSP. There we go. Research Digital Horizons, are we in the house? Yes, I am too old to say in the house. Directorate of the University Librarian, this one's going to be loud, where are we? Slightly nervous. Could we have them removed, please? So we're going to quickly run through the agenda for today. So again, you know where you've got to be and when you've got to be there. So we're going to start off today with some electrifying lightning talks. See what I did there? Great pun. Not the last dad joke of the day, I promise you. So there's going to be 3. We're going to have all speakers speak together, and then I'm going to come to you all for questions and answers. There will be people moving around with mics. If you see them, give them a wave. They'll come and ask your question. After that, we've got 3 more lightning talks, which will be particularly striking. See? Yeah, I won't do many more, don't worry. Which Alex is going to come to you guys for your Q&A as well. Then, after that, no expense spared, we printed it all out. After that, we're going to have a quick break, assuming your questions are up to standard. If not, I will keep you all behind. After that, we're going to have our keynote speaker, Neil McInnes, with a presentation called The Mancunian Way, and I know I'm particularly excited about that. After that, we're going to move to our first breakout session of the day. Then, there is such a thing as a free lunch, and it's happening today, everyone. So you can then go downstairs and get your free lunch. After that, we're going to move on to our second breakout session of the day, and then we're going to come back here for a few more talks, which Ria's going to tell you about now.
I am. Sorry. Okay. I don't know if Paul introduced us, but that's Paul.
You know who we are, right?
Alex. It's from FSP. So yeah, I don't know if you can hear me because I don't know if the mic works, but after lunch, we're going to have the 5 breakout sessions. Hope you all remember which room you are in. Check your emails. Eventbrite has sent you an email and reminder. And then we'll have another break. And then we're going to have the plenary at 3:25 back here. And we will have the 2 lightning talks followed by a question and answer. And then the Imagine 2030 plenary featuring yours truly. And Lorraine, of course. And then we will have the Rylands, where Nalin Thakkar, Vice President of Social Responsibility, or Professor Nalin Thakkar, sorry, will be presenting the Rylands. And then we are going to have the closing remarks, followed by everyone's favorite beer o'clock. So we're going to have a pilgrimage to Crawford House. If you haven't been there yet, please stay with the group. There will be signage, though, so when you enter, just look for the signs. I'll take you upstairs to have some pizza. And I'm going to hand over to Alex to talk about housekeeping.
Yeah, so we just have a few little interesting facts about house. I get the most interesting part to talk about. It's fantastic, it's glamorous, it's going to be fab, it's going to be great, you'll love it. So, just a few little housekeeping bits. Accessible toilets are on each floor. And on each aisle, on each corridor. There is also water fountains on each floor as well. The market, if you're unsure of where it is just to the left of where you registered this morning. So that's where you head down for the free vegan and veggie lunch, which we'll all be enjoying. Very lovely, very lush, very delicious, very fabulous. It's going to be great. And then standard toilets are situated on every single floor. We also have a quiet space, which is situated, is it floor 3? 3.214. If you do need any direction as to where your talks are, feel free to come and find me. I'm very hard to look for, as you can see. So if you can't find me, give me a shout and I'll come find you. And we can direct you in where you need to go. As usual, any questions you have, feel free to ask. All right, and now we're going to go on to the first batch of lightning talks with Paul.
That sounded like he was asking for a round of applause. I just thought that. Thank you. So we've now got our first round of lightning talks. So we're going to have Catherine Sullivan talking about this isn't just metadata, this is Manchester metadata. Then we're going to move on to Jeanette Martin, who's going to be talking about embedding special collections into student assessments. But first up, we have got MT Hutchinson, who asked me to deliberately describe him as the king. Told you I'd say it. And Jane Speller, with an introduction to the LGBTQ plus special collections guide. So guys, if you'd all like to make your way forward, what we're going to do is we're going to have everyone presenting in order, and then we'll come to you all for questions about all three. So you've got plenty of time to think of really good questions. Okay? Okay. MT? You guys want to come up first? Can we have a bit of a round of applause?
Yeah, hold the applause.
So just to clarify, Jane's not here. So MT's playing solo.
Yeah, I'm not Jane Speller. Yeah, well, I can do this with Jane. She unfortunately can't be here. So good morning. This is the first of today's lightning talks. It's not about cyber attacks, so you can relax a little bit. Should be a little bit lighter and a little more fun. Just going to see where we're up to on here. There we go. That's me. So some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm MT Hutchinson. I work in the Special Library Special Collections, otherwise known as the best part of the library, the cool part of the library. Maybe that's, listen to the boos already. I like warming you up. I'm going to introduce you to a project we've been working on, myself and Jane, over the past year with colleagues. We've produced an LGBTQ plus special collections guide. So why is this important? Creating accessible entry points into our vast special collections is a very important part of our work, and especially with inclusive guides such as this, which aren't just tailored around the needs of an academic course, but around the needs of our contemporary city and world. Guides as this open our collections out to a broader audience and create an awareness that we are a library who centres the lives and works of all people, especially marginalised groups such as queer people. As the groups of people who make up the queer family have been and still are persecuted, marginalised and even killed for long periods of history, their voices have often been suppressed, lost or entirely silenced within societies. This strips a great richness away from our collective cultures. So, as a library that collects material of cultural significance, we can find and amplify these lost voices. We're better to do this than in Manchester, a city which has queerness fully woven into its DNA, from the 1880 Hume drag ball to Alan Turing's 1950s Manchester, the huge anti-Section 28 protest of 1988, the iconic flash night at the Hacienda, the 1999's Queer as Folk, up to today's burgeoning queer scene, which is continuing to have a major cultural influence upon the city and wider reaches. Even the city's approach of doing things differently has been partly formed by its queerness, as people who often operate on the outside rather than the inside of things, doing things differently is the natural state for most queer people. The queering of collections is happening at many cultural institutions across Britain and further afield, including here in Manchester with the Whitworth's Queering the Whitworth project, which has led to a major co-curated exhibition which is on now, a reimagining of some of their permanent collections and the creation of a glossary to steer the gallery's online search facilities, catalogue and in-house wall text and literature, a project that I'm also involved in. In London, in particular, the Bishopsgate Institute and the first national LGBTQ+ museum, Queer Britain, between them house and make available one of the largest queer collections almost anywhere. But with work put in, the collections at Rylands and the Whitworth combined could form a northern version of the Southern Sisters. But let's return to the Queer Guide for a moment. A worthy question is, what is a special collections guide and why do we produce them? Simply put, with over 1.6 million items and counting within our special collections, we kind of have to create starting points for people who want to know more about their field of interest. We can't expect them to comb through catalogues using only keyword searches alone, although that is a handy approach as well. Special collections guides pull into one place a list of material relating to a field of study, research, or interest. For a good number of people, their starting point is an academic course, so that's why a lot of our guides reflect that, with guides on English literature, American studies, art history, for example. However, we're now broadening this out to better reflect the shift in needs of research and interest. What makes the queer guide particularly unique is the material listed in it cuts right across our collections. So that takes in manuscripts, printed books, visual material, archives, and objects. It also travels through different time periods, countries, cultures, and languages. So what are some of the discoveries that we've made? The most recent for me was discovering a cache of letters kept by an individual known as Chevalier d'Eon. The Chevalier d'Eon letters date from the time of the French Revolution and act as a fascinating insight into the shift in power dynamics of notable individuals during a time of great change within France. d'Eon themselves was a fascinating character, initially sent to Russia and later London by King Louis XV as part of his spy network. d'Eon also fought during the 7 Years' War and received the Order of Saint Louis, mood lighting. I wish that was slightly better timed, but whatever. d'Eon presented as male in the first part of their life and then female in the second. So from our position this century, you may be inclined to say that they were probably trans, but working on assumptions and putting contemporary language onto people from hundreds of years ago is not the best approach to take when exploring the past. But one thing that I can say, however, is that I believe many straight historians have misinterpreted d'Eon's gender expression by saying that their changes in presentation were part of just a disguise or a ruse, a part of their spy work. But I'm pretty sure disguises work best when they're subtle and they don't draw attention. And as d'Eon presented as female all of the time and changed their titles in personal correspondence, I'm pretty sure it was part of their full gender expression and identity. And in the letters that we have, they're addressed as Mademoiselle. Moving forward from the 18th century into the 19th, a most notable example to pull out from the guide is Frances Power Cobbe. She was quite the individual, had an opinion on everything, and never let constraints of the day hold her back one bit. She was a philosopher, writer, and social reformer who was well known during her lifetime, but near forgotten afterwards. This dropping out of her work from popular consumption from the early part of the 20th century to now disrupted its natural progression as a body of thought, meaning she has not only she hasn't been remembered amongst the names of prominent European philosophers or religious thinkers, nor has she been fully recognised as a notable figure within women's suffrage. So it's naturally open to debate whether or not her ideas hold enough worth to be considered in high regard. But in order for that collective judgment to be made, her work first of all has to be known about and made available. There are many things which should make Cobbe stand out. Amongst them, her sexuality as an open lesbian contributed to her distinctive viewpoint on women's rights and emancipation. So Cobbe's life and work are certainly worthy of greater attention and closer inspection in this century as well. Moving forward in time again, a recent addition to the British Pop Archive is the archive of Pete Shelley, who passed away in 2018. Shelley was the frontman of the British pop band Buzzcocks and later a solo artist. Upon forming Buzzcocks in 1976, he entered a British band scene and genre, punk, which was often fueled on machismo and was not, by and large, very open to alternative examples of masculinity or sexuality. But undeterred, Shelley, as a bisexual man, wrote distinctive lyrics about love. I'm going to skip slightly because I'm being nudged. The Queer Guide is a non-exhaustive living document which grows as new discoveries are made. This forms the backbone of our widening Queering the Collections project. The project will continue to develop, leading to forthcoming interviews, articles, and potential acquisitions. And in a Rylands Autumn 2023 exhibition, there's 2 display cases containing queer material. But to be blunt, there's also gaps to address. And the future of the project will be shaped around that. The guide in its current form is very white, as the special collections we're drawing from are. However, a queer approach can help to partially address that. For example, the Queer Night Flesh, which took place at the Hacienda in the 90s, was mostly female-led, very black, very lesbian, all the good things, basically. But you wouldn't know this by looking at the archives. So the plan is to collect oral recountings of the night by queer female POC DJs who played there, and to put those audio recordings and transcriptions into the archives, and that will go some way to addressing the balance and capturing the story more honestly. Don't worry, I'm almost finished. So, endeavours often work best when shared. So this is where I kind of flip this over to you a little bit. So it's myself and Jane who are mostly steering this and working on it, but the diversifying of collections needs to be a collective effort. So on the slide are some questions to mull over in your mind. Have a think over which part you could play in this project. Or if you can't get involved, can you take inspiration from it and apply some of the thinking that we've put into your teams or projects? Have you heard anything in the presentation which you'd like to add a thought on? You can contact us, so myself and Jane Speller are the project leads, so you can find us on the staff directory or on Teams. You can scan that QR code, that'll open up the guide on your phone straight away on the web browser. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for your time, cheers for your ears, and I'll pass it on and take questions after.
Now that's going to be a very hard act to follow. I don't think I've got any jokes built in, so I'm sorry about that. So this morning I'm going to tell you very quickly about how we build collections into student assessments. But before I do that, why are special collections important for teaching and learning? They offer great potential for new and original interpretations of the past. They're very immediate, much more so than secondary sources. We always find students respond very warmly to the physicality, the material culture of manuscripts, objects, letters, photographs and maps. And most important of all, encountering collections transforms students into researchers, enhances the learning experience and provides employability skills. So why should academics use collections in innovative assessments? Students really enjoy assessments that are not essays, that challenge them in new and original ways. They offer transferable communication skills, such as writing for a public audience. They encourage students to move from passively receiving wisdom to becoming active researchers, and very importantly, enjoyment, the charm of the physical object in an increasingly digital world. So my first case study focuses on second-year American history students. Curators across 3 sites worked with Dr. Andrew Fernley, hosting collection-based workshops at the Rylands, the Ahmed Iqbal Ullah Race Centre and the Map Room. Dr. Fernley had previously spent time with the collections, identifying groups of objects that he matched with the relevant secondary sources, and then these objects were then matched with groups of 2 to 4 students. The students were then set a research-based long essay of 6,000 words. Each student then distills their long essay into a 600-word blog with 2 to 3 collection-based images. And this is such an important life skill, being able to summarise complex stories into powerful, short, well-written communications. And on your screen, you can see some of the student blogs that we've hosted in the past, and I'm expecting any moment now a new batch of American history blogs. So my second case study is for an MA module led by Dr. Mike Sanders. Now, George Gissin was a Victorian novelist and also alumni of Manchester University, and the library holds some very important archives relating to him. This year, Professor Sanders centred his teaching and his assessment around this collection, allowing his MA students unique access to this uncatalogued collection. Imogen Durant led an MA workshop introducing our 4 different Gissin collections, and the students were given 2 assessment choices. One was writing a proposal for Manchester University Press to reissue an out-of-print Gissin novel, or the other option was creating a proposal for a George Gissin exhibition at the John Rylands Library. This was the first time that the module ran in this form, and there are future plans to look at other ways of working with the archives, such as box listing assessments. So real-world experience for the MA students was enhanced by a very exclusive question and answer session with the actor Christopher Douglas, and you can see him with Mike Sanders on the screen. Christopher Douglas, whose radio character some of you may have heard of, Ed Reardon, is loosely based on George Gissin, And Douglas also recently adapted Gissin's novel The Odd Woman for Radio 4. So grilling him was directly relevant for the student assessments. And another really nice touch was that a staff member from Manchester University Press and myself as a Rylands representative were invited to attend the student presentations and send comments. And again, this is a really lovely way in which research and learning was matched to a professional business context. And so to conclude, you'll be pleased about that, Pamela. Building collections into assessments is brilliant because it enhances the Manchester student experience and demonstrates the library's ongoing commitment to undergraduate and postgraduate teaching. So what did the students like? The intellectual challenge of working with unfamiliar materials, talking to curators and seeing some of the special collections and feeling very welcome. And what they didn't like, they wanted more time with the collections, which is great, we can easily do that. They wanted less confusing catalogues. Now that is a lot less easy to deliver. And one final boon for the library, the research that was carried out by these American history students demonstrated that 2 of our anti-slavery pamphlets were wrongly dated. And so we've amended the catalogue now to the correct date. And finally, I can't emphasise enough how this was very, very much a collective endeavour, and I'd like to thank all the people on the slide who helped in delivering these 2 innovative modules. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Catherine Sullivan, and today I'll be sharing with you my thoughts on why Manchester Metadata is so unique and remarkable from my position as Metadata and Discovery Manager within Directorate of Collection Strategies. So what makes Manchester exceptional? We know we are not a typical academic library. This also applies to our institutional metadata practice and our levels of cataloguing intervention. Our main consideration is how we ensure the best discovery experience to enable our users to find, identify, select, obtain and explore. Plus, we seek to ensure impact and value for money when we are considering purchasing or subscribing to aggregations of electronic content. Descriptive metadata is managed, manipulated and stored within several platforms and systems. We manage the range of content via description and subject access for formats purchased, donated, created, subscribed, as well as known open access. Visible aspects of the metadata work we do include rare print collection cataloguing, purchased E and P print titles, and Manchester digital collections, to name a few. In these cases, we create it, we amend it, and therefore we manage the access to the content it represents. But what can't we control? Most subscribed content where descriptive metadata is supplied by aggregators and system providers means we have to endeavour to systematically manage and improve it. However, sometimes we are unable to amend or control it. Diverse content providers supply diverse levels of description. Where does the metadata live? Who creates it? Whether it's fit for purpose? This will affect how much we can do to improve it. Annual changes to collection content packages, provider and access rights all play their part in challenging metadata management at scale. We are also impacted by Ex Libris Discovery Index, CDI, which incorporates content into our library search interface. This equates to 5.2 billion records available from 7,000 providers. We seek to consider which providers and content are displayed. Looking ahead, a rapidly changing publishing environment will also have an impact on descriptive metadata available to us. The growth of open access content has so far proved to come with variable description and sometimes requires us to track the content down to investigate its availability. Collections are growing, digital and open access is developing, and in many cases, electronic access is preferred. We need inclusive metadata of good quality at a quicker pace with increased speed of content delivery. Should we compromise quality? Pursuing immediacy? Metadata is an asset representing years of investment. Metadata should be fit for purpose, where the level of description is dependent on the purpose of the content. Fair data principles should be applied where possible. Metadata may require remediation measures. Systematic intervention is preferred where possible over manual. Considering the age of some of our metadata alongside changes to cataloguing practice over the years, we know we have varying levels of metadata within our library management system. There is work to do managing and updating this legacy. Name authority control is required to ensure accurate record linkage. Standardised, consistent and accurate subject analysis considering the values of equity, diversity and inclusion, we recognise the need to future-proof our subject control and consider our approach. Is there a role for linked data here? We collaborate with research services team to curate and advise on research data sets and output metadata into Pure and Figshare. We provide cataloguing support for the Race Centre for purchase content and recently retrospective upgrading of collections, and we work with Manchester Central Library considering cataloguing practice in relation to EDI cataloguing principles. We create quality marked records for MUP in the Manchester Hive, which we openly pass to anyone enabling access to that content. And we share our bibliographic metadata with the MBK Library Hub and OCLC WorldCat. We work in partnership with subscriptions and the e-resources team to ensure we get the opportunity to advocate for publisher good practice and to gather case studies for metadata impact. Our aim is to build these relationships, influence change and build a community of practice. Therefore, we represent on the CILIP Metadata and Discovery Special Interest Group and the ALN Metadata and Linked Data Community of Practice. We believe in open access and open metadata. It is a principle we stand by and advocate for. Metadata we create is freely available. Relevancy ranking is key to user satisfaction. Our goal is to ensure seamless access and availability via intuitive search, as well as for serendipitous discovery. We enable this first via Library Search and via JISC Hub, Library Hub, OCLC WorldCat, and of course Google for content we own. We have a caveat here for the Manchester Digital Collections, as that is a separate that we are trying to implement currently into our library search. Subject and numerical analysis is crucial as we seek to analyse the uniqueness of our collections or consider overlap analysis with other institutions. This again depends on accurate, consistent metadata for comparison purposes. We're working with RL UK, Collection Strategy Network, for their collective collections project. And it's a high-level opportunity, again, for an overview of our metadata. Precision relevancy affects discovery. Linked open data has a role to play. Hopefully, this sums up our dedication to quality and why it matters. And I want to leave you with where you can find out more. So we have some presentations in the conference today. I want to highlight Urania's lightning talk, which will be coming shortly. Also highlight Emma Booth discussing open access books in one of the breakout rooms. And finally, the Race Centre metadata work that Veronica and Pam and team at the Race Centre have been working on as well. So hopefully you can get some more information from there. But please contact us all if you have any questions. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I bloody love working here. It's so interesting. So this is the point where you guys get to ask some questions of the panel over here. We've got some people with mics around. Thank you, Laura. Could everyone else do a cool little wave of the mic? You can see where we're talking. So if you've got a question, if you just want to raise your hand, or one of our mic runners will come to you straight away. There we go. Nick?
Hi everyone, my question's for Catherine. I was just asking about what opportunities you talked about open linked data, what would that add to us and what are the barriers?
It is a standardised approach via, for instance, persistent identifiers. We already use things like ORCIDs in research data. We use DOIs, and it just forms a sort of precise form of linking. A lot of the subject work that we do is quite time dependent, and there's an awful lot of development in linked open data that we probably should be thinking about tapping into. What we have in metadata is our structured infrastructure in a way, and it's looking for those opportunities to pull that information in whereby we can link all the content, and it works really well with the likes of Research Data actually. If you were to go into Research Explorer, you can see all those linked people, linked outputs, linked data, and a lot of that is to do with linked data operations. And we are waiting for more development to hopefully try it further and see what we can do and add it to it's that future-proofing aspect I talked about. We can move a step forward should we be putting persistent identifiers. We do in some cases in our MARC records to sort of help us move forward. Then if MARC ever moves on, we have the opportunity to transfer that data. Hope that answers your question.
Any more questions, anyone? Oh, I've got a few now. Jess? There's a couple. Aya's got a question. Oh, no. Could I ask the people asking questions just to introduce who they are and say which team they're from, please?
Hello, I'm Gwen Riley-Jones and I'm from Curatorial Practices.
Just
I've got
like
a question
that,
for Mark. Thank you. What was the biggest challenge you faced putting the guide together, and what could change to reduce those challenges in the team?
I guess the first one is just scale. You're going cutting right across the collections. Most curators just have one piece to look at. This is potentially everything, because queer people have existed and do exist throughout history and indeed in archives and material throughout. So we just kind of went for the most obvious ones first, the most apparent ones, but still they hadn't had the correct level of recognition that they deserved, not just within Rylands, but within Manchester, Britain, and further afield as well. So I guess it's the scale of it, and the challenges are, it's just me and Jane combing through 1.6 million items and trying to pull those out and make them relevant to people, and also describe what each is in each thing and why it's relevant, why it's interesting, how it could be used. So I guess it's the scale of it, and that's why in the presentation I did kind of flip it around a little bit to say that this isn't a two-person project, this is a library-wide project. And diversifying the collections is a shared endeavour that we should all be involved in. So definitely anybody in the room talk to us about that, or even just input, offer an idea or a thought about it. Or if anyone has experiences from elsewhere that they've worked of projects that are similar, could you perhaps give us some guidance on that as well? Because it's just kind of a pet project that we started up, but these type of kind of specialised types of materials shouldn't be siloed and kind of being seen as othered from the rest of the collections and separated. They're very much a part of them. And I don't want that or collections at the Race Centre or anything to kind of be siloed off and seen as, oh, that's being done by them. Therefore, the rest of us don't have to do anything. It's very much a shared endeavour and everyone gains from it. So I think it's, scale, getting more people involved and making everybody know that it's a shared endeavour that they can input into.
Okay, so we've got time for 2 more questions. If you want to go first, then we'll come to you, Jane.
Thank you very much. I'm Jane Gallagher, Head of Digital Special Collections and Services. Thank you very much for all of your really interesting talks. Can you hear me? Good. Okay. I kind of wanted to segue really nicely on from that last point. I was going to ask around querying collections. It's really great to hear all the work that's going on, that you're doing, MT. And I wondered, across the board, in terms of metadata and teaching, is there more we could be doing to, further this work in terms of querying collections, and whether you have any reflections on that?
Is that a question for me or metadata? I don't know, it's a bit of a mix. We can do a bit of both of a question on that. To be honest, we haven't really focused too much on metadata and cataloguing side of it, but we'd like to. It's more, we've just kind of identified material, put them into a guide and created that as a resource, but obviously the collection is bigger than that, and we're going through different time periods, cultures, countries, and within that things have been catalogued not so well over the years. So. And that's obviously no reflection on us, that's reflection on, ways of looking at things in the past, but we do have to still work with that and deal with that. So I don't know if you've got anything.
No, it's actually something I was thinking of when you were doing your presentation, actually. All these opportunities give us those case studies. We should be thinking more broadly about the work that we do, and if we can link it into projects, it's all the better. Use the experience from everybody that could be involved. So, yeah. If that answers your question.
Sort of teaching and learning perspective, thematic guides work so well. Because one of the points I made was how difficult they find using catalogues. So if things have been brought together in a way that's really user-friendly for the students, so I'm massively grateful to this guide as well.
Thank you.
My question kind of follows on from that as well. because I was thinking, how can we contribute as people who work with documents, for instance? How can we contribute to that? Because we did some work on the Chevalier d'Eon together, and there was so much going
pronouncing
to...
it correctly, I was like...
and, you know, there was a lot of back and forth, like, is this part of the sort of spy idea, or is this part of the gender identity? And there was a lot of us going through the documents trying to figure this out. But the problem is, of course, that, as you said, a lot of the times we work on one document or one thing. How do we put this together, and can we just sort of pass on suspicions to you? Like, how do we do that? Because sometimes it takes a lot of research to really find something tangible, and I was kind of wondering how you approach that.
Well, that's it. You don't want to guess, or you don't want to work on assumptions, or you don't want to put onto it things that you think, but don't know for certain. So everything that we put into the guide, we have to know for certain. So we'll often start with that person's, if we've got it, their voice, their words, what they said. And if within that they describe themselves, or in correspondence with other people, they'll say certain things, then you know. Because it's done in their words, and then you can go, oh, this is how they identified, or it's just kind of on the internet. You can find it very easily that this person identified in this way with regards to their gender or their sexuality. Basically, the rule of thumb me and Jane are running through this with is never assume, never guess, and if we're not certain, don't include it. And it's as simple as that. And I would say do the same, so anybody else, follow that rule of thumb. If you're ever in doubt, just go, actually, I'm not going to guess at this. Or you could always ask someone else's opinion, or get them to look at it as well with a closer eye and look into things. But we also don't want to do the work of researchers. Ultimately, we're just providing this material, making it available, and then it's up to them to research into it more heavily. All we can really do is say, this is the material that we've got, it's up to you to now look into this more in depth. All we can do is sketch out what we've got, a general overview of what we think it is, and then pass it on to you to find out more.
Okay, can we have one last round of applause for Jeanette? And I'm going to hand over to Alex for our next set of lightning talks.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Wasn't that fabulous? That was amazing. Great stuff. I love this library. It's great. Fantastic. I sound like I'm making it up and I'm not being interested, but I am very interested. I'm resting bitface 24/7. Just a little bit of housekeeping that I did forget. There are no expected fire alarm drills or fire alarm testing today. If you do hear it, it is not Kylie Minogue's Padam Padam. It is, in fact, you need to evacuate. The evacuation area to gather to is opposite the Williams building. If you don't know where that is, it's the stone pathway just opposite the main arch to John Owens. So opposite Benugo. If you've ever gone to the Benugo, decent sandwiches. All right, so we're on to our next batch of talks. So we've got 3 amazing lightning talkers for you today. We have Jamie Robinson representing the Magic Monsters and Macabre at the John Rylands Research Institute. I should really learn to breathe, which should be absolutely amazing. I wrote down how to pronounce your name because I wanted to get it right. So Aya van Rentagem, close. I'll receive notes later, you tell me. And Urania Carapacia. I said it 4 times before I got up here, and I still got it wrong. But we have these lovely presenters here to present to you on, Aya will present on the future of volunteering in special collections, and Urania will be presenting on the digital edition of the Heinrich Simon papers from a metadata perspective. So give it up for them. Have a good time.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Urania and I'm a digital metadata specialist. Last month we celebrated the launch of a new edition in Manchester Digital Collections, the digital edition of the Heinrich Simon papers. As the lead on the creation of metadata, I will be talking about how high quality and well-managed metadata makes scholarly research data findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable. But before we get into more detail, let me familiarize you with the term metadata and its invaluable role in libraries' digital collections. So, metadata is information that defines and describes data. It refers to the descriptive, structural, and administrative elements that define content. You can think about it as a subset of documentation that is structured, standardized, and human-machine readable. While all types of metadata provide sustainable access to digital collections, descriptive metadata is of particular significance. It describes the original resource, its content, and its identifying characteristics, its aboutness. In essence, descriptive metadata enables users to directly interact with the digital contents in their efforts to access, identify, retrieve, navigate, and interpret information. Completeness, accuracy, and consistency are the most commonly used criteria for ascertaining the quality of metadata. Quality relies heavily on the selection of the most appropriate schema of standards and tools, as well as the creation of clean and consistent metadata according to those standards. These standards can be classified into three broader categories. Structured standards outline the overall structure for the metadata, the schema, and TIP5 is the XML standard we use. This digital edition consists of two schemas tailored to describe correspondence and non-correspondence materials. Content standards are tied more to the TI standard and value standards. Generally called control vocabularies or authorities, value standards help to eliminate variation and ambiguity. A classic example is the Library of Congress subject headings, which is the only subject heading accepted as the worldwide standard. Structured and standardized metadata and its consistent implementation facilitates simple and efficient means to increase the fairness of research digital resources. In other words, quality metadata is key to making information more easily findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable into the future. So let's look at some examples of how metadata works within the digital edition, first at the collection level and then item level. On the left-hand side, we can see filters that are tailored for this type of collection, allowing users to search according to class mark, author, people, place, subjects, etc. All these are great from an access and discoverability standpoint within the digital edition. However, for these filters to function, raw data had to be transformed into clean quality metadata to ensure interoperability and consistency among terms elements, something that is best managed by applying authority control. The indexes of people and places were generated by recording every identifiable individual and place in the transcriptions. 1,390 personal names and 430 place names were processed and standardized. Whenever applicable, personal names were assigned with URL links to the Virtual International Authority file and the biographical dictionary Deutsche Biography. For place names, Get a Thesaurus of Geographic Names was used. And links to Wikipedia were also added for all entries. Transforming all the above into linked open data enabled a bidirectional linking with external content. If all 5 of the filters highlighted in yellow were applied, it would lead the search to item SIM2112, which is our next slide. And this provides an example of descriptive metadata at an item level. SIM2112 is a letter from Heinrich Simon to his family. All the terms highlighted in purple are authorities or control vocabularies. These are clickable, redirecting the user to MDC's faceted search, where any other resources that include those terms can also be viewed. We will now focus on 2 main elements, namely subject and destination. These 2 employ explicit rules of practices governing the choice of values. First, subject. There is no limit on the number of subjects, but they're useful for finding or understanding the contents of the item. With the material being in German language, including a good number of subjects enhanced findability, which is obviously great from an access and discoverability standpoint. Extracting these subjects, however, was a massive task in many different levels. Initially, the translation of each individual item was required, and after that, the decision-making process for selecting the most appropriate subject heading had to be established. And unfortunately, the Library of Congress doesn't make it any easier, as it's quite a hard task. So, and then, second, is destination, which standardization of place name was crucial here because the content was created in various parts of present-day Germany and Poland in the Kingdom of Prussia. As an access measure, a place name appears in the text with its German name, in this example Breslau, while its modern official name, Wrocław, is included in brackets. Applying this rule is yet another example of how findability, among other things, findability was enhanced. To sum up, this example is one of the 659 items which, in terms of findability, has sufficiently rich descriptive metadata that describes both the material and textual aspects of the resource and provides more avenues for search and discovery. In terms of accessibility, the metadata is understandable and easy to find for both humans and computers. As with most collections in MDC, the metadata is downloadable and can be accessed and viewed in detail. In terms of interoperability, the metadata use formal, accessible, shared, and broadly applicable language for knowledge representation, such as agreed upon control vocabularies and consistent terminology. And finally, in terms of reusability, the metadata is accurate and richly described, specifies provenance and rights holders, has a clear and accessible data usage license, and in general meets relevant domain standards. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Aya Varenderhem. I'm the Teaching and Learning Coordinator for Special Collections, and I'm going to be talking about the future of volunteering in special collections, and I've given it a sort of snazzy pilot to program title. So before we start on what the future is, let's look back at the past. So how did we start with with volunteering at special collections? There's always been volunteering. But it was ad hoc, and I've said to multiple people that if anyone says the words ad hoc to me again, I'm going to start screaming. But what that essentially means is there were a small number of students who'd stay on after placements, so we've been running placements for quite a long time, and sometimes they didn't feel their projects were finished, or they just really liked being at special collections, so they would offer their time to work on other things. Or we'd have the enterprising people who would email us and say, I have some time, I would love to come and work with you, these are my skills, do you have anything for me? So, and the projects that were run were kind of, oh, we really need a big chunk of work done, or right person, right place, right time. So you have the skill set, we have this project that needs done, great. What that means is that we have the occasional established project, but often we got people who were just really good volunteers and would stay on for years and then became part of the furniture. So when we started really thinking about volunteering and sort of making it part of what we do rather than something we kind of sometimes did, we came up with the idea of running a pilot this year. So what that means is we put a few ground rules down. We would take up to 10 volunteers. I would create volunteer paperwork, so we have an expression of interest when people email us, we have a volunteer agreement, and we have a handbook so people actually know where to go on their first day, etc. We created a volunteer policy so both parties actually knew what was required, what was expected. And we matched volunteers to projects. So people would come in, we'd see their skill set, and then we say, oh, we have something that would work. Or they'd have a special language that they knew, and then I would try and find a curator who would have something for them. But these were defined and time-limited projects, which means usually 3 to 6 months, depending on how much time they could dedicate. And then we would end that and give other people a chance, because there's quite a lot of demand. So what did we observe during this year-long pilot? So we're coming to the end of it now. That the number 10 was reached really, really quickly. And people just kind of flocked to that idea of coming to work with us. The staff willingness also increased. Some people had already worked with volunteers, were very comfortable with that. Some people were not, but kind of see their colleagues having quite a productive time with these volunteers and thought, oh, you know, I'll try it as well. And then it kind of snowballed that way. And the pilot advertised itself. So we very consciously said, we will not put this anywhere, we will not advertise it online, we will just come up with these ground rules and see what happens. And we didn't need to. It just kind of spread the word without any of us trying. A few cons that we noticed: there's still a barrier, especially if we're looking in terms of sort of diversity. And many of our sort of more diverse group of volunteers did present themselves following events at the Rylands or teaching. So there would be sessions of communities where they would be like, oh, I really enjoyed looking at these objects. Is there anything I could do? And then someone will mention our volunteering program. And then I'll get a flurry of emails being like, can we come and help, please? Same with teaching. People would suddenly realize that the objects were there. So it wasn't like people would walk in. A group of people did that, but not the widest group. And this was definitely a learning curve for me. It takes a lot of work and time to match volunteers to projects. It's very much do you have anything? Well, not at the moment, I'll think about it, etc. So then, welcome to the new volunteering program. So from the next academic year, we are officially adding volunteering to our offer. We're sticking to 10 volunteers. It's not because we're making this a solid thing we have to immediately expand. I think we're still kind of trialing some stuff out. We will, however, start advertising online, and there will be a web page that kind of explains everything, how we work, what our offer is, what we can and cannot do. So please don't send me 17 emails, I want to work with manuscripts. It's not that easy. And we will try recruitment rather than just matching. So we will come up with projects and then recruit people to them rather than the other way around. But it's not because this is our next step that means it's all we want to do for the future. We do want to do more things and gradually increase our offer, very much with a focus on diversity in the sector. We really want to try and diversify. We would love to run bigger time-specific projects, like a big sort of cataloguing thing over the summer would be amazing, because things tend to be slightly slower, which means we have time for this. And eventually, in the far future, we would love to create graduate internships and actually pay people for their time, because however lovely all our volunteers are, we really wish we could pay them. But yes, that's the idea of volunteering. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, I'm Jeremy Robinson, heritage photographer at the Rylands, and having worked here for, if you can believe it, 16 years, I've been fortunate enough to work with some truly mind-blowing things. I had the opportunity to bring some of these together in digital form through lockdown, and the Magic, Monsters and Macabre collection was born. There are so many fascinating things to look at and so many stories to tell. When I raced through this initial draft of the talk, it was well over 15 minutes, so I could go into so much more detail about the likes of such monsters and the macabre as this early 16th century engraving showing two vain and wealthy women interrupted by death and the devil. This kind of subject was popular and served as a reminder of mortality. The apocalyptic Latin MS-8, the monstrous births of Italian MS-63. On the right here you'll see a boy with two faces, both with penises for noses. Or the truly horrific early volumes on witchcraft that became manuals which led to the persecution of women over some 200 years. But today I'm going to focus briefly on the magic and stories of strange occult rituals from in the library walls itself. So there are many items from all corners of the earth that can fall under the magic umbrella, like this 16th century copy of a compendium of unnatural black magic by the 12th century Scottish occult scholar Michael Scott. German alchemical manuscripts like MS1 here from the 15th century, and MS3 containing this gorgeous Hand of the Mysteries, which I've adopted as a sort of logo to tie the social media and magic collections together. These wonderful Gaster Hebrew amulets, the collection contains all manner of charms, jewellery and protection symbols against ailments, evils and spirits. The label for 27 spinning round there reads, "Made of earth of the precincts of the mosque at Mecca, dipped in blood of one of the sacrifices brought there. These tiny frogs are against throat infection, and the snake bracelet and charm are against evil spirits." And this is even a well-preserved stag beetle head with a part where you can connect it to a necklace chain. Can't really see these very well like that. This is from the Batak, that's better, the Batak collection, which is a small collection of concertina bark manuscripts from Indonesia. And one of the magical instructions is, "The magician takes a toad and a lizard and feeds them on his magic medicine, makes them wear sashes of earthworms and yokes them to a small plough. Out of the ribcage of a palm leaf, he makes a whip with the hibiscus flower bound at the top with coloured thread. Stark naked," very important, "he goes to the battlefield and makes them plough 7 furrows. Then he throws away his whip and goes home. This practice will cause storm and darkness that drive the approaching enemy back." I wanted to tell a more recent story though. In an article that I found from 2018, Greville Lindop, not here, tells the tale of the Rylands' very own resident occultist, Alex Sanders, the so-called King of the Witches and library book duster. Wearing brown warehouse coats, the book duster's job was to work their way around the shelves, dusting the books with a soft brush. The task was more important than it might seem now due to the city's air being full of coal smoke at the time. On the 7th of August 1962, Sanders was duly employed. Trouble, it seemed, began just a few weeks later. A member of library staff discovered excretia in the library basement. The librarian, making the unpleasant discovery, tried to believe that the caretaker's cat was to blame, but the caretaker assured the offensive matter was of human origin. Staff suspected that Sanders was responsible, though in fairness, the perpetrator was never identified. Probably Sanders' behaviour had already attracted the suspicion by notice of misplaced books in the area of his responsibility. However that may have been, any suspicion attached to Sanders was given definition on the 15th of September 1962 when the Manchester Evening News named him in a sensational front-page article headed "Amazing Black Magic Rites on the Cheshire Hillside." Library staff quickly became aware of their employee's news appearance, and their immediate response was to examine the library's holdings on witchcraft, where it was found that several books were missing or damaged. Sanders was summoned at once and confronted with evidence of his misconduct. He admitted guilt, police became involved, and visited Sanders' Charlton home. The police visit did result in the discovery of 2 damaged library books in the home. There are no exact reports of which volumes he took, but the 1889 copy of the Key of Solomon is mentioned and has photocopied pages where originals are missing, as you can see on the right. And the even more mysterious Book of Black Magic from 1898 shows evidence of Sanders' crimes. See here how the section appears to have been pulled out and folded, perhaps stuffed into the pocket of a book duster's coat. The chapter is entitled "The Mysteries of the Infernal Evocation according to the Grand Grimoire No. 1, The Rite of Luciferge." Did Sanders take this section in the belief that he was going to conjure up a deal with the devil? Luckily, Sanders wouldn't have had access to the stores holding the library's rare and unique volumes that he no doubt coveted, like those previously mentioned, and this 1789 manuscript copy of the Key of Solomon, which no doubt brought him to the library to begin with. So what next? Well, for a start, I can do much longer talks, public events, collection encounters, perhaps even an exhibition. But first, I'd like to expand the MDC collection. I've currently identified another 20 or so items that are digitised already in Luna, and have an ever-expanding list of other volumes to explore. I'm literally just starting to scratch the surface, and with titles such as Tree and Serpent Worship, Dances of Death, Experiments on Vipers, and the huge Monstorum Historia, there is no doubt many more treasures to unearth and bring together for the first time digitally, and this is without delving into the vast and gruesome medical collections. Quick thanks to reader services and curators for alerting me to such macabre volumes and helping me on my quest to unearth all the esoteric material in the library and bring it together in one collection. Thank you.
fantastic stuff. Must remind myself to check in to read those collections so my exes can be warned and beware. So once again, we're going to have people walking around with mics. If you have any questions, please remember to say your name and the faculty you belong to. First one up.
Hi, Michael Douglas, Projects and Business Analysis, with a question for Jamie. You run a fantastic Instagram account with the Rylands Esoterica. Did that require a lot of sign-off from other marketing or communications people within the wider university? Or did you do it slightly more punk rock and develop your own brand, and that it's so fantastically done, no one could possibly have any critique of you doing such a thing?
I'm taking a more personal approach to it, which I have told everybody about. All the images are images that are already available online. Obviously, I'm fascinated with these things, so I'm not saying anything against the library or staff or anything like that. So I've not encountered any problems yet, and I hope I won't today. So thank you for that.
Got a question at the front here.
Hello, I'm Annie. I'm from the Race Centre team. I've got a question for Aya. I think it's brilliant you're thinking about diversity moving forward with the volunteering programme, and I just wondered if you could share any details on kind of what steps you're going to take to kind of diversify the pool of volunteers that you're recruiting.
Oh, you've gone for the complicated one. So basically, it's a very complicated issue, and we've had many conversations about it. But I think in all those discussions where, sometimes you make progress and sometimes you just go backwards, we have decided that it is really our focus, and we are really trying to use that diversity angle for our volunteering. One of the things that we're trying to do is, for instance, if we have a project on, the sick manuscript project that we did, that we've worked with the community, and basically if we have something that we can connect to a community, go to that community and ask if anyone's interested. Obviously, there's always, with diversity, the issue of payment and people not being able to do it. So we do reimburse sort of travel costs, etc. So that's kind of the step we've taken towards trying to attract a wider group. But it is basically offering what people can do to different communities, because a lot of people don't know they can. Like, we've noticed that throughout our project, a lot of people just come to us because they've been told that they can. And obviously we can't go around Manchester, tell everyone, come and volunteer with us, because, I'd probably hide somewhere. But it's offering it to people who we think might be interested, trying to reach communities. We are also going to use University of Manchester Volunteering Hub. We've been working with them. And we've got contacts with sort of other cultural institutions who are already running very large volunteering programs and have much more wisdom on that. And going to Manchester Volunteering as well, if we have things. The problem that we encounter is that some of it requires a certain level of skill, and it's very difficult to match everything that we want in that one person or in that specific group. So it's a very tricky issue, but we're trying our best, and I think that's step one, and then we're hoping to kind of learn over time how to reach those communities, how to be better at this diversifying. Thank you.
All right, fabulous. We're going to have to cut it off there, but I'm sure if you have any more questions that all of our lightning talk speakers... One more question? Okay, one more question. Oh. One more question, who's got it?
Hi, I have a quick question for Urania. I'm not sure if the mic's on, but it is. Okay. And it was about the Simon Papers. Now you've got this fantastic data which you sort of cleaned up and turned into sort of linked standardized data. Does the project have any plans for doing something like data visualization with the sort of people, places and dates that you've got?
Well, the truth is that is not considered as finished project. So we're hoping to attract more attention, or even if it is the same people who started the project, the researchers, we're hoping to continue and improve, develop, and we're going along with MDC, technical ability and everything. And we already have an example like the Hamilton Papers. So we're hoping, yes, to expand and explore more avenues. I hope I've answered the question.
Alrighty. So fantastic. Let's give it up for our speakers today. Gorgeous. Love it.
All right, so I hope this one works, but thank you everyone for the speakers for both lightning talks. Now you're gonna have a break. It is a chance to breathe different air, but also you can go back to the drum, have a look at the posters. So they're on both sides of the poster boards, look at the digital content, and check out the thank you notes that have been prepared.